5:15 in the morning, the Strait of Hormuz. The aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln navigated the narrow shipping lane under complete electronic silence. This transit was not a routine show of force. The massive warship was attempting to hide in plain sight. An intercepted and badly translated Iranian maritime broadcast had altered the rules of engagement hours before dawn. The misunderstanding planted a seed that would soon grow into a global crisis. Neither the American commanders nor the Iranian coastal defense forces knew they were operating in entirely different realities. The air was heavy and thick with humidity. The ocean was flat and black. High, rocky cliffs of the Omani coastline loomed to the south. To the north, the Iranian shoreline remained shrouded in a dense sea fog. Two Arleigh Burke-class destroyers escorted the carrier. The USS Cole took the vanguard position. The USS Decatur covered the rear. They moved at 15 knots. A wide wake stretched out for miles behind the dark formation. 5:22 in the morning. The Combat Information Center aboard the aircraft carrier. The large rectangular room was bathed in dim blue light. The air conditioning hummed loudly. 36 tactical operators stared at their monitors. They were running strictly on passive sensors to avoid broadcasting their position. The ship was a ghost. It listened, but did not speak. The tactical action officer walked slowly down the center aisle. He stopped behind the primary surface warfare coordinator. He spoke in a low voice. "Report any active emissions from the northern shore." The coordinator kept his eyes locked on the digital display. "Sir, the electromagnetic spectrum is completely clean. We have no coastal defense radars painting our formation." The officer crossed his arms. "Keep monitoring." Central Command Intelligence said they locked down the entire sector. The warning message had been intercepted at midnight. The quick translation provided to the strike group stated that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Navy had declared an active military exclusion zone. It heavily implied hostile intent. The actual Farsi broadcast had merely announced a temporary navigational hazard area due to a sunken commercial fishing trawler. The American carrier was quietly sneaking through what it believed was an aggressive military blockade. In reality, it was an ordinary morning. 5:30 in the morning. Iranian Coastal Defense Command at Bandar Abbas. The concrete bunker smelled of old paper and ozone. The night shift commander drank bitter tea and watched the commercial shipping monitors. The morning was entirely routine. The hazard zone for the sunken trawler was holding steady. No commercial cargo traffic was moving through the northern transit lane. Across the room, a junior acoustic technician noticed a strange anomaly. He tapped his screen. He called the commander over to his station. The technician pointed at a jagged green line. "Sir, I am registering a massive water displacement in the southern transit lane. The acoustic signature is extremely heavy." The commander put down his tea. He leaned over the console. The International Automatic Identification System showed 0 large vessels in that sector. Commercial oil tankers always broadcast their positions to avoid collisions. Military warships operating in stealth did not. The commander stood up straight. He made a tactical decision. He spoke to the radar operator. "Activate the primary surface search radar. Sweep the southern channel. Find out what is displacing that water." The massive radar dish on the coastline began to rotate. An invisible wave of electromagnetic energy blasted across the black water toward the hidden American strike group. The morning was still quiet. It would not stay that way. 5:35 in the morning. Beneath the Strait of Hormuz, an Iranian Ghadir-class midget submarine crept along the shallow seabed. The small diesel-electric boat was virtually silent. Its green hull blended into the muddy bottom. Its mission was routine coastal defense. Its captain believed this morning was a standard training patrol. He was wrong. The cramped control room smelled of diesel fumes and sweat. The sonar operator pressed his headphones tightly against his ears. He stared at the glowing green waterfall display. A massive acoustic signature washed over his passive sensors. The sound did not match anything in his commercial shipping database. He called out to the captain. "Sir, heavy water displacement. Bearing 190. Range is under 10 nautical miles. The contact is moving fast." The captain frowned and stepped closer. "A heavy tanker?" "Negative, sir. The acoustic profile is completely wrong." I am reading multiple propulsion plant signatures. It sounds like a major military strike group, but they are completely dark. They are not broadcasting any civilian identification. 5:40 in the morning, Bandar Abbas Coastal Command. The primary surface search radar completed its first active sweep. The return data flooded the command center screens in bright green light. The night shift commander leaned heavily over the main console. He stared at the massive radar blooms. 3 distinctly large vessels were moving swiftly through the southern channel. They were completely dark on the International Automatic Identification System. This was a severe violation of maritime law. In a congested choke point, running dark was incredibly dangerous. To the Iranian commander, it looked like an ambush. He picked up the radio microphone. He switched to the open international maritime hailing frequency. He spoke in clear English. Unknown vessels in the southern transit lane. This is Iranian Coastal Defense Command. You are entering a restricted navigational hazard area. Identify yourselves immediately, or you will be considered hostile. He waited. Only static answered him. 5:45 in the morning. The Combat Information Center aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. The radio transmission crackled loudly through the overhead speakers. The tactical action officer listened closely. To American ears, the words perfectly matched the flawed intelligence warning from midnight. The Iranians were claiming a restricted zone. They were openly threatening hostile action against an American carrier. The primary surface warfare coordinator looked back at the officer. "Sir, they have our exact position. We are being actively painted by shore-based radar. Their tracking lock is solid." The officer keyed his headset to the ship's bridge. "Captain, we have been painted by coastal defense. Bandar Abbas is demanding identification. They are reiterating the hostile exclusion zone." On the bridge, the carrier captain stared out at the pitch-black horizon. He had clear orders from Central Command to transit the strait. An unannounced military blockade was an act of aggression. Yielding to it in international waters would set a dangerous strategic precedent. He had to demonstrate resolve. He gave his order. Break emission control. Activate primary surface search radars. Send a standard transit response. Do not yield our course. We proceed as planned. 5:50 in the morning. The Strait of Hormuz. The destroyers USS Cole and USS Decatur executed the order instantly. They powered up their massive phased array radars. Enormous bursts of electromagnetic energy illuminated the narrow strait. The American Ghost Fleet was suddenly blazing on the electronic spectrum. The sheer power of their radars washed over the entire Iranian coastline like a tidal wave. Inside the Iranian command bunker, warning klaxons began to wail. The sudden wall of sound shattered the quiet morning. The commander watched his screens light up with military-grade targeting emissions. The unknown vessels had not answered his peaceful hail. Instead, they had activated advanced military fire control systems. He grabbed the red command phone. The simple translation error had just become a terrifying tactical reality. He issued a new order. Launch the fast attack craft from the northern piers. Arm the coastal anti-ship batteries on Keshem Island. We are under direct threat. The sun was not yet up. The water remained black. But the countdown to a shooting war had begun. 5:52 in the morning, the Bandar Abbas Naval Facility. The northern piers erupted into frantic motion. 12 Iranian fast attack craft dropped their heavy mooring lines. Their high-performance diesel engines roared to life. Water churned white behind their sterns. These were not standard coastal patrol boats. They were heavily armed swarm interceptors. Each small vessel carried twin anti-ship missiles and heavy deck guns. Their orders from Coastal Command were absolute. Intercept the massive radar contacts moving through the southern transit lane. Do not let the unknown vessels pass the Keshem Island choke point. The boat crews believed they were defending a critical hazard zone from a hostile incursion. They pushed their throttles forward. The 12 boats accelerated into the dark water. They formed a wide crescent shape. They were hunting the ghosts. 5:55 in the morning. The Combat Information Center aboard the USS Cole. The Vanguard destroyer led the American formation. Inside the darkroom, the tactical displays were no longer empty. The radar screens bloomed with fresh, hostile contacts. The surface warfare coordinator spoke loudly. "Captain, We have multiple high-speed surface contacts inbound from the north. 12 distinct signatures. Speed is 45 knots. They are moving in a swarm formation. The captain stood directly behind the primary console. He stared at the rapidly closing green icons. Time to intercept, the coordinator answered immediately. At their current speed, they will reach our inner defensive perimeter in exactly 12 minutes. The captain keyed his radio to the carrier command staff. Lincoln, this is Cole. We have an incoming fast attack swarm. Requesting permission to assume defensive posture and bring weapons to standby. 5:57 in the morning. The bridge of the USS Abraham Lincoln. The strike group commander listened to the radio call from his destroyer. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. The midnight intelligence report had warned of an active exclusion zone. Now the Iranian Navy was actively enforcing it with a high-speed swarm attack. It looked exactly like a coordinated ambush. The commander spoke into his headset. Cole, this is Lincoln. Permission granted. Bring all close and weapon systems online. Do not fire unless fired upon. Maintain the perimeter. We will not be pushed out of international waters. He turned to the ship helmsman. Increase speed to 20 knots. Let us push through this choke point. The massive nuclear-powered aircraft carrier surged forward. The heavy vibration could be felt through the deck plates. On the exterior decks of all three American ships, automated mechanical whirring began. The radar-guided phalanx automated guns spun up. Their barrels pointed out toward the black water. The 5-inch deck guns rotated off their center axis. The American ships were now locked and loaded. 6 in the morning, the Iranian fast attack craft formation. The lead Iranian interceptor bounced violently over the dark ocean waves. The young boat commander gripped the center console to steady himself. His radio earpiece crackled with continuous targeting data from Coastal Command. They were closing the distance fast. The sky to the east was just beginning to turn a pale gray. Through the heavy morning sea fog, massive black silhouettes began to emerge. The radar signatures were real. 3 massive gray warships were speeding directly through the restricted zone. Worse, the American radars were painting the small Iranian boats with intense electromagnetic energy. The targeting lock alarms inside the Iranian boats began to scream. The Iranian boat commander keyed his tactical radio. Command, this is Intercept Lead. We have visual contact. They are American warships, a carrier and 2 destroyers. They have active fire control radars locked on us. They are violating the hazard zone. The response from Bandar Abbas was immediate and tense. Lead, hold your course. Do not let them break the line. Weapons free if they cross the boundary. The gap was closing. The weapons were hot on both sides. The simple translation error was about to draw blood. 6:12 in the morning, the Strait of Hormuz. The destroyer USS Cole accelerated violently. Its massive gas turbine engines roared. The warship cut a sharp angle through the dark water. It was moving out of the vanguard position to physically screen the aircraft carrier. The captain of the Cole stood on the bridge wing. He watched the hazy horizon. The 12 Iranian fast attack craft were visible now. They were small, white streaks churning across the black surface of the sea. The tactical radio hissed. Lincoln, this is Cole. We are interposing our hull between you and the swarm. We will take the brunt of an initial strike. The response from the carrier was calm but strained. Copy that. Do not engage unless they cross the 1-mile perimeter. Inside the Combat Information Center of the Cole, the weapons operators were sweating. The automated phalanx gun systems were fully active. The mechanical mounts tracked the incoming boats seamlessly. The radar cross-sections were small but moving incredibly fast. The surface warfare coordinator called out the ranges. Target 1 is at 3 miles. Speed is 40 knots. Target 2 is flanking left. They are fanning out for a multi-axis attack. The captain kept his binoculars fixed on the water. Maintain track. Keep the 5-inch deck gun trained on their lead vessel. Give them nowhere to hide. 6:15 in the morning. Keshem Island. High on the rocky cliffs, an Iranian coastal missile battery overlooked the narrowest part of the strait. The command bunker was buried deep under concrete and steel. The battery commander stared at his green radar display. The tactical situation was escalating far beyond his control. He watched the American destroyer break formation. It was accelerating aggressively toward the Iranian patrol boats. To his eyes, it was not a defensive screen. It was an offensive charge. The massive American warship looked like it was preparing to run down the smaller swarm interceptors. His orders from Bandar Abbas were rigid: protect the hazard zone, defend Iranian naval assets. He picked up his heavy command phone. This is Battery Actual. The American destroyer is attacking our interceptors. Power up the primary engagement radars. Uncap the heavy anti-ship missiles. Target the largest radar signature in their formation. Outside the bunker, massive steel doors slid open along the cliff face. 4 heavy cruise missile tubes elevated into firing position. Their targeting sensors sought the heat and mass of the American ships. Invisible beams of high-frequency energy swept across the water. They locked directly onto the massive steel hull of the aircraft carrier. 6:18 in the morning, the Combat Information Center aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. The threat receiver alarms instantly changed pitch. The steady electronic tone became a rapid and high-pitched scream. The tactical action officer grabbed the edge of his console. The digital map flashed deep red. The warfare coordinator shouted over the noise, "New threat. We are being painted by heavy anti-ship fire control radars. Bearing 300, the signal is coming from Keshem Island. It is a solid lock." The carrier was now completely boxed in. The fast attack swarm was closing rapidly from the front. Heavy supersonic missiles were locked onto their broadside. To the American commanders, it was a perfectly executed ambush. The strike group commander on the bridge listened to the stark report. His jaw tightened. The rules of engagement dictated self-defense. If those shore batteries launched, the carrier would have less than 90 seconds to react. He had to prepare a lethal counterstrike. He keyed his radio. "Decatur, this is Lincoln. Target the shore batteries. Spin up your Tomahawk cruise missiles. If they launch, we level that island." The sky was finally turning a pale gray. The standoff was over. The physical trigger was about to be pulled. 6:19 in the morning. The Combat Information Center aboard the USS Cole. The digital perimeter flashed red. The outer warning zone was breached. The Iranian swarm did not slow down. They held their speed at 45 knots. They were now inside 2 nautical miles. The automated phalanx weapon systems tracked their every micro-movement. The mechanical whine of the defensive turrets vibrated through the heavy steel hull of the destroyer. The tactical action officer spoke rapidly. "Threat remains active on the starboard side. Keshem Island radar lock is solid. Swarm interceptors are inside the 2-mile line. We are completely surrounded." The captain of the Cole issued a final command to his weapons team. "Load the 5-inch deck gun. Use a proximity airburst shell. Target the water 300 yards ahead of the lead Iranian boat. We will give them 1 physical warning before we sink them. Do not fire until my command." 6:19 and 30 seconds in the morning. The lead Iranian fast attack craft. The small interceptor pounded violently through the ocean swells. The young Iranian commander tasted salt water on his lips. His boat was shaking violently from the engine strain. The massive gray wall of the American destroyer loomed directly ahead. It was actively blocking his path to the aircraft carrier. The large American deck gun was pointed directly at his chest. His radio earpiece snapped with static. Bandar Abbas command was screaming in his ear. "Lead interceptor. They are violating the hazard zone. They are preparing to fire. You are clear to engage. Fire your anti-ship missiles. I repeat, weapons free." The boat commander put his thumb over the red launch button. He had a solid firing solution. The distance was point blank. The small missiles could not miss. But if he fired, the American automated guns would tear his boat to pieces seconds later. He hesitated for one crucial moment. 6:20 in the morning. Keshem Island. The Iranian coastal battery commander stood over his launch console. The heavy anti-ship missiles were fully armed. Their internal gyroscopes were spinning at maximum velocity. The targeting computers had a perfect lock on the American aircraft carrier. The enormous heat signature of its nuclear reactors was impossible to miss. His orders were absolute. If the American destroyer fired on the small patrol boats, he was to launch all 4 heavy missiles immediately. He watched the digital track of the USS Cole. He waited for the flash of its main deck gun. His finger rested on the firing sequence initiator. The concrete bunker was dead silent. The air was thick and suffocating. 6:20 and 30 seconds in the morning, the bridge of the USS Abraham Lincoln. The strike group commander stared at the tactical feed. The situation was completely unraveling. The shore batteries were locked on. The swarm was inside the defensive bubble. If the Cole fired a warning shot, the shore batteries would almost certainly misinterpret it as a lethal attack. They would launch their heavy cruise missiles in retaliation. The carrier would take a direct hit. He keyed his radio. "Cole, this is Lincoln. Hold your warning shot. I repeat. Do not fire the deck gun." The radio response from the Cole was instantaneous and tense. "Lincoln, they are inside 1 mile. If we do not fire, they will launch their weapons at point-blank range. We cannot defend you at this proximity. Hold your fire. We need 5 more seconds." 6:21 in the morning. The Strait of Hormuz. The standoff reached its absolute limit. Thousands of men were seconds away from death. The targeting radar screamed on both sides. The electronic warfare systems were completely saturated. The trigger pull was imminent. The Iranian boat commander pressed his thumb down on the safety cover of the launch button. The American gunner on the Cole squeezed his firing grip. Neither side wanted to die. Neither side could afford to back down. The translation error had built an inescapable trap. War was no longer a possibility. It was a mechanical certainty. Then, the ocean itself intervened. 6:22 in the morning. The Strait of Hormuz. The Liberian-flagged oil tanker Pacific Pioneer was massive. It carried 300,000 tons of crude oil. It had been holding a steady course in the northern commercial lane. Its captain was completely unaware of the invisible electronic war raging miles behind him. His vessel was a floating mountain of steel. Deep inside the engineering spaces of the tanker, a single high-pressure hydraulic line ruptured. The fluid sprayed across the primary steering gear control box. The electrical systems shorted out instantly. A cascading failure ripped through the automated helm controls. The massive steel rudder slammed hard to port and locked in place. The ocean giant violently broke from its safe navigation lane. It swung sharply into the southern transit channel. Over 100,000 tons of displacement created a massive localized tidal surge. The tanker was now drifting completely out of control. It was moving broadside. It was sliding directly into the 1-mile gap between the USS Cole and the Iranian fast attack swarm. 6:22 and 15 seconds in the morning. The Combat Information Center aboard the USS Cole. The tactical displays suddenly scrambled. A colossal radar return bloomed in the dead center of the kill box. The surface warfare coordinator shouted over the alarm tones. "Emergency! Massive civilian surface contact. It is drifting directly into our line of fire. The target track is completely obscured." The captain of the Cole looked out the bridge window. Through the pale morning fog, a literal wall of red-painted steel materialized. The commercial tanker was sliding sideways into their path. He yelled his command. "Abort the warning shot. Break the radar lock. Hard to starboard. Do not ram that tanker." The automated phalanx guns immediately ceased their tracking hum. The American destroyer banked hard. It rolled heavily into the ocean swells to avoid a catastrophic physical collision. 6:23 in the morning. The lead Iranian fast attack craft. The young boat commander stared in horror. The American destroyer had vanished behind a moving wall of steel. The commercial tanker was towering over his small interceptor. Its massive bronze propeller was churning the water into a lethal vortex. His targeting system screamed and then went completely dead. The anti-ship missiles lost their lock. The tanker had perfectly severed the line of sight. He keyed his radio frantically. Lead interceptor to swarm. Break off immediately. Hard left rudder. The 12 Iranian boats scattered. They violently altered their courses. The coordinated attack formation shattered into chaos. Several small boats nearly collided with each other in the heavy wake of the drifting ocean liner. 6:23 and 30 seconds in the morning. Bandar Abbas Coastal Command. The green radar screens in the command bunker flickered wildly. The night shift commander watched the tactical picture disintegrate. The massive American radar signatures were no longer targeting his patrol boats. The American destroyer was actively maneuvering away. He picked up the direct line to Keshem Island. Battery actual, this is Coastal Command. Do you still have a firing solution on the aircraft carrier? The response from the missile bunker was tense. Negative. A commercial supertanker has drifted into the primary radar cone. The signal is completely jammed. Our target lock is broken. We have lost the carrier. 6:24 in the morning. The Strait of Hormuz. The immediate threat of death had passed. The physical barrier of the broken tanker had forced a hard reset on every targeting computer in the strait. But the two heavily armed fleets were now trapped together in a chaotic and collapsing waterway. The shooting had been stopped by blind luck. Now they had to survive the aftermath. 6:24 in the morning. The Strait of Hormuz. The ocean was a chaos of churning wakes and blaring collision alarms. The Liberian tanker Pacific Pioneer groaned loudly. Its massive hull scraped against the ocean's swells as it drifted sideways. The destroyer USS Cole leaned heavily into a starboard turn. Its gas turbine engines screamed in protest. The warship carved a violent arc through the black water. It cleared the massive bronze propeller of the drifting tanker by less than 200 yards. On the opposite side of the steel wall, the Iranian swarm was completely shattered. The 12 fast attack craft bounced wildly in the heavy wake of the ocean giant. They fought to maintain control of their small vessels. The coordinated ambush formation was gone. It was replaced by a desperate scramble for survival. 6:26 in the morning. The Combat Information Center aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. The high-pitched warning tones abruptly stopped. The red threat rings vanished from the primary digital map. The tactical action officer stared at his clean screen. He called out to the room. The Keshem Island missile batteries have lost their firing solution. The civilian tanker is blocking their radar cone. We are clear of the shore threat. On the bridge, the strike group commander let out a slow breath. He keyed his radio. Cole, this is Lincoln. Report your status. The radio crackled with static. Lincoln, this is Cole. We are clear of the tanker. The Iranian swarm has scattered. They did not fire. The strike group commander made a rapid tactical calculation. If this was a deliberate and coordinated ambush, the Iranians would have fired blindly. Or they would have immediately repositioned to reacquire their targets. They were doing neither. They were simply trying not to be crushed by the civilian ship. He issued a new order. All ships, stand down from immediate action. Hold defensive perimeters. Do not reacquire targeting locks. Let the temperature drop. 6:28 in the morning. Bandar Abbas Coastal Command. The green radar displays were a mess of overlapping echoes. The night shift commander wiped cold sweat from his face. He watched the massive American radar signatures pulling back. The American destroyer had not fired its main deck gun. The aircraft carrier was holding its course, but its escort had actively turned away from the patrol boats. He picked up his command phone. Intercept lead. Report your situation, the young boat commander answered. His voice was shaking over the open channel. Command, the American destroyer evaded the tanker. They did not fire on us. They broke their targeting locks. The coastal commander frowned deeply. This did not make sense. If the Americans were launching an offensive strike into a restricted zone, they would not have aborted for a drifting civilian ship. They would have fired their weapons. He realized his underlying assumption might be entirely wrong. The Americans were acting like a force defending itself, not a force initiating a war. He spoke firmly into the phone. Intercept lead. Hold your position behind the tanker. Do not re-engage. Battery actual. Keep your missiles uncapped, but do not seek a new targeting lock. We hold our ground. 6:30 in the morning. The Strait of Hormuz. The sun finally broke over the eastern horizon. The pale morning light revealed a bizarre tactical reality. A 300,000-ton crude oil carrier was wedged horizontally across the transit lane. On the southern side sat an American carrier strike group with its automated guns powered down but ready. On the northern side sat a dozen heavily armed Iranian patrol boats idling in the water. A massive wall of civilian steel separated two professional militaries. 30 seconds prior, they had been on the absolute brink of a catastrophic regional war. The immediate threat of kinetic weapons fire was paused. But they were still trapped together in the same narrow choke point. The physical barrier had stopped the missiles. Now they needed words to stop the crisis entirely. 6:35 in the morning. The Strait of Hormuz. The destroyer USS Cole held its position in the turbulent water. The captain stood on the bridge wing. He watched the massive steel wall of the Liberian tanker. The physical barrier between the two fleets would not last forever. The heavy ocean currents were already pushing the disabled civilian ship toward the northern channel. In less than 10 minutes, the line of sight would be restored. When the radar cones reconnected, the automated targeting computers would immediately attempt to lock on. The captain knew he had to stop the machine logic before that happened. He turned to his communications officer. Open a direct, unencrypted channel. Use the International Maritime Emergency Frequency. I need to speak to the Iranian sector commander directly. No automated relays. 6:37 in the morning, Bandar Abbas Coastal Command. The concrete bunker was silent except for the hum of the cooling fans. The night shift commander stood over the main radio console. The primary speaker cracked with static. An American voice filled the room. It was calm, measured, and entirely professional. Iranian Coastal Defense Command. This is the captain of the United States ship Cole. We are holding our present position. We have no hostile intent. I repeat, we are not initiating an attack. We are pausing our transit. The Iranian commander picked up his heavy microphone. He took a deep breath. He spoke in slow and precise English. United States ship Cole. This is Bandar Abbas Command. I acknowledge your pause. If you have no hostile intent, why are you transiting dark through a restricted hazard zone? You activated military fire control radars against our patrol assets. 6:39 in the morning. The bridge of the USS Cole. The American captain listened to the response. He frowned deeply. The pieces of the puzzle were not fitting together. The Iranian commander was acting like a man defending his territory from a sudden invasion. The captain pressed his transmit button. Bandar Abbas. We are operating under international transit rights. We received an intercepted broadcast at midnight. Your command declared an active military exclusion zone in the strait. We were responding to a perceived hostile blockade. We activated radars only when painted by your coastal defense. A long pause followed. The radio hissed with open static. 6:41 in the morning, Bandar Abbas Coastal Command. The Iranian commander stared at his radio operator. A look of complete disbelief crossed his face. He understood exactly what had happened. He pressed the transmit key. Captain of the Cole, you are operating on false intelligence. The midnight broadcast was a civilian navigational warning. A commercial fishing trawler sank in the northern lane late yesterday. We established a temporary boundary to protect the civilian salvage operation. There is no military blockade. There is no exclusion zone. 6:45 in the morning. The Combat Information Center aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln. The strike group commander listened to the relayed audio from his destroyer. The entire room was dead silent. He turned slowly to his senior intelligence officer. The officer was already frantically reviewing the raw data intercept from midnight. The digital screens reflected off his pale face. The intelligence officer spoke in a quiet voice. Sir, the automated translation algorithm miscategorized the Farsi maritime terms. It flagged the civilian hazard warning as a hostile military exclusion order. The context was completely lost in the machine translation. The initial intelligence report was entirely wrong. The strike group commander let out a long, heavy breath. A simple software error had nearly started a global war. The machines had flawlessly optimized a path to mutual destruction. It took two human beings talking on an open radio to break the cycle. 6:50 in the morning, the Strait of Hormuz. The radio cracked again. It was the Iranian commander at Bandar Abbas. United States ship Cole. Our fast attack craft are pulling back to the northern boundary. We are powering down our coastal missile targeting radars. We advise you to proceed through the southern transit lane. Maintain a speed of 15 knots. Keep your transponders active. The captain of the Cole responded immediately. Bandar Abbas. We acknowledge your withdrawal. We are powering down all automated weapons systems. We will transit the southern lane with active identification. Thank you for the clarification. The drifting civilian tanker finally slid clear of the southern channel. The line of sight was restored, but the targeting radars remained silent. The 12 Iranian fast-attack craft turned their bows north and throttled away. The American warship slowly brought its bow around to the east. The crisis was unwinding. The guns were cold. 7:30 in the morning, the Gulf of Oman. The United States ship Abraham Lincoln sailed into open water. The narrow and treacherous walls of the strait fell behind them. The morning sun climbed higher into a clear blue sky. The ocean swelled with deep and rolling waves. The claustrophobia of the choke point was finally gone. The strike group was safe. Inside the Combat Information Center, the blue lights seemed less oppressive. The tactical operators sat back in their heavy chairs. Nobody cheered. Nobody spoke. The silence was not empty. It was the heavy and exhausted silence of men who had just stared into an abyss. They had been 90 seconds away from burning alive in the dark. The strike group commander stood on the bridge wing. He felt the warm wind against his face. He watched the wake of his massive ship stretch out toward the western horizon. A single software error had nearly started a global conflict. Millions of lines of code had perfectly optimized a path to mutual destruction. It had taken 2 humans speaking on an open radio to stop it. He turned back inside. He had a very long report to write. 7:45 in the morning, Bandar Abbas. The concrete command bunker smelled of stale sweat and cold tea. The night shift commander sat at his desk. His shift was over. He did not move to leave. He stared blankly at the green radar monitors. The screens showed nothing but normal commercial traffic. The ghost fleet was gone. He held a printed summary of the incident in his right hand. The translation matrix had already been updated. The automated flag for the hazard zone had been corrected. It was a simple fix. It took a junior programmer less than 5 minutes to patch the error. 5 minutes of coding to prevent a regional war. The commander folded the paper carefully. He placed it in his pocket. He knew the absolute truth. They had not been saved by technology. They had been saved by a broken hydraulic line on a Liberian oil tanker. Blind luck had bought them the 30 seconds they needed to think. He stood up slowly. He walked out of the bunker and into the blinding morning light. He would never trust an automated threat warning again. 8:15 in the morning. The northern Iranian piers. The 12 fast attack craft returned to the naval base. They tied down their heavy mooring lines. The young boat commanders stepped onto the concrete docks. Their legs were shaking. They did not speak to each other. They simply walked to the armory to secure their weapons. They had looked up at a mountain of American steel. They had felt the radar locks burning through their small holes. They were alive because an anonymous civilian helmsman had lost control of his ship. They understood exactly how fragile their existence was. 8:30 in the morning. United States Central Command in Florida. It was late evening in America. The strategic analysis rooms were fully staffed. The flash reports from the Abraham Lincoln had reached the highest levels of the Pentagon. The raw data logs were being dissected byte by byte. The analysts saw exactly how the cascade failure occurred. The artificial intelligence translation tools had lacked contextual awareness. The machines had treated a civilian maritime warning as a hostile military declaration. The automated targeting systems on both sides had reacted exactly as designed. The software had functioned perfectly. That was the terrifying part. The technology had built a flawless machine for accidental war. It had removed the human element from the initial assessment phase. The speed of modern weapons demanded automated responses. But automated responses could not understand nuance. They could not understand a mistake. Experts would later study this incident for years. It would become the primary case study in the danger of autonomous escalation. 2 professional navies had acted rationally based on the flawed information they possessed. Both had prepared to defend themselves. Neither had wanted to attack. No missiles flew in the Strait of Hormuz. No ships were lost to the dark water. But history shifted in the span of 30 seconds. When the absolute line was crossed, both sides chose restraint. They chose to wait 1 more second. They chose to talk instead of fire. The Gulf of Oman was quiet. The sun reflected off the unbroken ocean. Modern warfare is decided not by who fires first. It is decided by who chooses not to fire at all.